What's good YouTube, welcome to my channel, Lars and Conditioning. In this video we'll cover some nutrition help to get you started with your gym journey. This is something a lot of people tend to mess up, even though it's very simple. I'm sorry for the bad handwriting, this is my own and it just looks like a mess, but it's my bad. So, protein and carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram and fat have 9, alcohol has 7 and fiber has 2. Now, these are the 5 nutrients that we have. However, something like alcohol is not something that you should actually be consuming on a daily or even regular basis, especially if you want to take your training and health serious. So basically you can discount that for the most part. However, if you were to enjoy a beer or something like that once in a while, you can use this information to calculate into your daily calorie needs, so you can actually take that into account. Alright, here are some quick suggestions for protein and fats. I decided to take these together all at once simply because a lot of the time if you're trying to get a protein source, you're more than likely also going to have some fat to go with it. Especially if you're talking any sort of animal-based product. If you take cheese, a lot of protein, a lot of fat. If you take meat of any sort, there's also going to be some fat to it, and depending on the cut, it could be a little or it could be a lot. So I decided to put these things together simply because it goes nicely together. So the suggestions overall match very well, except for something like beans and lentils, because they are vegetarian or vegan, so they tend to have basically all 3 of macronutrients. So you have to balance this out in a little bit in a different way, that if you are one of the people who actually eats plant-based instead of more animal-based, as probably the most people still tend to do, even though it is shifting. So I'll cover the obvious why we need protein in the first place. Aside from like recovery and building bigger muscles, we need it for hair, skin, nail, teeth, and we need it for a bunch of functions in the body. So it's also something that we do need as a whole, just as a base. We just need more of it when we happen to be lifting weights and want to get bigger and stronger. Now, I gave you the figure with a picture earlier of 0.8 to 1.2 gram protein per kilogram of body weight that you have. Now, this figure may not work for everybody. So the reason why it may not work for everybody is if you are a person who is very overweight, this figure will very well overshoot the amount of protein that you actually need. What you can do instead is you simply take your height in centimeters, yes, in centimeters, and then that becomes your daily protein need. So if you're 160 centimeters tall, you're going to get 160 grams of protein per day. This is going to be your figure if you happen to be on the heavier side. Alright, in this last page, and once again I'm sorry for my handwriting, we have fiber, carbohydrates and sugar all in one. Now this will also cover some quick sources that you can get these. And so the thing is, why do we have sugar and carbohydrates in the same picture? Simply because that carbohydrate is carbohydrate, sugar is a carbohydrate, but a carbohydrate isn't a sugar necessarily. It depends on the source that you get the carbohydrate from. So as an example of this, if you eat oatmeal, yes, that's going to be carbohydrates, but it's not going to be sugar. However, if you drink a can of soda, that's going to be sugar, and it's also going to be a carbohydrate. So they are not quite the same, but in some regards they still sort of are. So this is some considerations that you need to take for what do you do in your daily life. So in your general overall daily life, things like oatmeals, apples, pears, these sorts of things is going to be really good for your overall health and well-being and you having stable energy. Whereas if you just drink a bunch of soda, sure, you're going to get a bunch of carbs, it's easy, but it's not going to help you and sustain your energy levels. In terms of fiber, we recommend somewhere between 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. This can go even higher if you are a person who is extremely heavy, so you may need a little bit more. The reason why I have not given a figure for how many carbohydrates that you'd be consuming on a daily basis is simply because it changes a lot between people. If you are very sedentary, or you work as a bricklayer, or you generally have a job where you move and lift a lot, you're just going to need a lot more carbohydrates versus someone who doesn't do these things. So it could range anywhere from like 200 to 800 grams of carbohydrates per day. Yeah, it could range that much. And this also depends on how much muscle you actually have. The figure that I would use as a base is to double your protein. So if we go back to the protein intake, if you're 160 centimeters tall, you get a 160 grams of protein per day, then you double that to 320 grams of carbohydrates at base. This would be a starting point, however it's not set in stone, so you have to be willing to actually adjust this and make the changes that you need to over time. So one thing that could actually cause a change, if you go from taking these 320 grams of carbohydrates a day, where you train 2 times per week, and you then, because of changes, you may go to like 5 days a week, the amount of carbohydrates you're going to need is going to increase quite drastically. Similar if you go from being jobless and you just sit at home all day, and then you start getting a job where you have to move a lot, suddenly you're going to need a lot more carbohydrates. So you're having this as a figure that you need to use just to get yourself started, and then adjust accordingly over time. Alright, so how would you go about actually to increase the amount of carbohydrates that you need? So if you find that 320 grams doesn't feel that good for you, you need to actually up it. So the way I would go about it is to be more on the safe side. Increase by 30 to 50 grams per day on like a 2 or 3 week schedule. So if you take 320 grams right now and then up it to 350, then do that for a couple of weeks, see what happens. If things still doesn't feel that great, try and up it another 30, maybe even 50 if you want to highball it a little bit. So the reason why I would rather have you to go slow is if you just be like, fuck it, it's too slow, or I'm not feeling good enough, and you're gonna smash 150 grams of carbohydrates, sure, you're gonna probably get to feel good afterwards, but what may not feel so great for some people at least is that you may accidentally go into a bulk or even into a dirty bulk in that case. So this is why I want you to take it slow and steady wins the race. Thank you for watching. Last and Conditioning signing out. I hope you have an awesome day.